Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Maaike and today I am going to be putting together my all-star eyeshadow palette. So I saw this being done by Samantha March and Mandy Lee. They collabed on this video idea and I decided to pick up on it because I saw it and I thought that looks like so much fun. So what is the premise of this video? I have selected 15 different eyeshadow palettes, and of each palette I am going to be selecting one shade, and together all of these shades are going to be making up my all-star eyeshadow palette. So if I were to pick, this is how Mandy Lee described it, that if I were to pick players to go onto like a sports team, what would make the best team? So, but then eyeshadow. And of course, that's much more my thing because I am not really into sports. Like, I work out, sure. But me watching sports voluntarily, not gonna happen. Just so you know, I have selected 15 palettes, as I mentioned. One shade from each palette, and hopefully my arm will be nicely covered in swatches for you in a minute. So I will first show you my matte selections because I did sort of, I'm not sure if this is cheating, but I sort of picked the palettes. So it may very well be very differently from what you expect because I picked the palettes out and already sort of laid everything out on my floor and then sort of looked at different shades going like, would that go together? Would that go together? Would that go together? So I tried to make it a color story and sort of then bring in different things. So if you know what I like, then maybe there aren't that many surprises here. But let's just start with something that I know I needed, which was a couple of mattes that could be crease shades and that could deepen things up, but that could also be like a fun pop of color on the lower lash line if you did a very basic look with it. So I immediately had to think of this. Did you see that? I almost dropped it. I immediately had to think of this. This is the Marvellous Mauves palette by Dose of Colors, and I've been using this a ton, and as I'm filming this video just today, the review for this finally went live, and that shade in the middle, it's called Wishy Washy, and it's one of my favorite like mauve-y neutral shades. If I swatch this for you right here at the top, and you know that I love like purples and mauves, and this in the crease, it's so stunning, you guys. It's just so incredibly pretty. And it's also a little bit deeper than what I would normally go for, so I could use this as a wash of color, and it will go with some of the shimmers that I'm selecting in a minute as well. But I know I also would like to have something that's not mauve, but that's a bit more brown toned. So I decided to go in with a shade from the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill Vault. This is from the Dark Magic palette, and this is a stunning cool tone palette. This is going to make an appearance very soon in that cool tone video that I've been promising. But it has a shade called Shh, and I think that if I had to select a matte crease shade, it would be something like this. So again, if I swatch this for you, like, it's got good pigmentation, but it's more brown. And I think that if I wouldn't want to go for something very plummy, that I would need something like this in the palette to really sort of make that work. So I feel that in terms of depth, they're very similar, but they just have a very different color to them. So this is a mauve-y, plummy shade, and this is more like browny taupe, which I like. But then I do want something that I can deepen it up with as well. So then I thought, ABH Norvina. This is the palette that got my ABH love train started, and this has a shade called Volatile, which is this shade right there, and it's a cooler toned brown, but I think a little bit deeper than the other things I have going on in here. Plus, I think that this matte, yeah, there we go. Since it's deeper but still cool toned, it can go with the brown, but it could also deepen up the mauve shade. So I wanted to make sure that I could really sort of make it work as sort of like one palette in the end. So if you know anything about me, then I really like a blend shade for my crease shade. And for this, I thought we could go in with the Huda Beauty Nude Light, and this shade doesn't have a name, but this shade right here, this matte, perfect transition for my complexion. So, and again, it is a bit browny, So it will go with everything that is in here, and it's just a fair bit lighter, and it has a bit of warmth to it. And I find that sometimes these like more peachy shades can really help with sort of having a good blend, because it's then sort of more like skin tone like, and that makes for a really nice transition. So I wanted that. But if you know anything about me, then you know I like greens, teals, blues, and purples for pops of color. And I like my palettes to have a bit of a pop of color for either the lower lash line or to add something that's a bit more fun. So I had to think immediately of this palette. If there is a palette that can bring fun to a look, it would be the Tribe by Juvia's. And from this palette, I would like to select this matte, which is called Son. Son is like a greeny, tealy shade. Like, depending on how you use it, it will look a bit more green or it will look a bit more teal. But I thought that this is absolutely stunning. So it will now look a little bit more green, but if you put it together with a taupe, then that coolness can make it go a little bit more teal leaning as well. But I just thought that that would be a nice sort of like fun pop to sort of really make it work. So that would be shade number 5. And that rounds off the mattes. So I just need a couple of mattes in a palette. I'm a shimmer gal, so for me, this would be it. And now I just need to talk fun shimmers. Let's just start with basics. Let's just start with the basics, because what I really like in a palette is if it has a good inner corner highlight, but also enough mid-tone shimmers that I like putting on my lids. I thought that for an inner corner highlight, I immediately thought of this. This is the Zoeva Spice of Life, and this is a palette that has a blend of both warm and cool tones, but this shade right here, called Unlike Any Other, looks really boring in the pan, but it's a cool tone shimmer. And you know what I always say about Zoeva, they do duochromes and they do them very well. So I feel that this, it has a bit more pigmentation to it, so I think it can work as like a topper or as a bit of like a lid shade as well, if you really sort of pack it on and blend it in. But this shade I think will be really stunning as an inner corner highlight as well. So sort of like a transformer kind of shade, you could say. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but it has like a soft beige base to it with silver shimmer, and that's what you see in the pan. But then when you put it on the eye and swatch it, it's got a little bit of pink and purple running through it as well. It's really pretty. But I really like having a couple of like different undertoned, what I like to call mid-tone shimmers. And I have a nice selection here. One of my favorite sort of like mid-tone shades to put on my lid is a rose gold. And I have several, and I didn't know which one to pick, but I was like, no, I need to feature at least one of my all-time favorite palettes in here. So here we have the Naked 2. And in the Naked 2, and this is a shade Urban Decay has put in other palettes as well, so maybe you own this in other palettes, but this is YDK, and YDK is like a taupey rose gold. And that's why I wanted to put it in here, because it's not too pink. Like some rose golds can be very sort of pinky peachy, which I don't like, but I just thought that YDK would go really nicely with that mauve shade from Dose of Colors. It will also go with these two mattes very easily. It can be blended out with this if you want to go for something very basic. It goes with that inner corner highlight, and the green goes with it as well. So I just thought that that would work really well, but that's a bit more like pinky, bronzy, taupey sort of shade. I love it. But if I'm going to make a palette, to be quite honest, it has to have, apart from a teal, it has to have a taupe. My current favorite taupe is from this palette right here, the Lime Crime Venus Immortalis Echo, which is that shade right there, is quite possibly one of the best taupes ever made. So that's why I wanted to make sure to put in a good taupe. I have to say that the Dark Magic by Jaclyn Hill has a really good taupe too, as does the Urban Decay and all that, but I wanted to make sure I had different formulas in here and different brands, so I wouldn't just stick with it. And I think the rule is that you can only pick one eyeshadow per palette, so that's why that had to go in there. But I also really like to put in a really good silver, and I just did a video on the makeup look I'm wearing today, and the eyeshadow palette I use is one by Makeup Revolution. and it's not my favorite, but something that Makeup Revolution has done so well is create a silver in the Soap Extra Spice. And this is what it looks like. It is a very warm tone palette, but I pretty much keep it around for that silver and no other reason. It's a very cheap and cheerful palette. Boom, silver. I haven't found a silver like this in many palettes. Like the Lime Crime, again, has a pretty good silver. Anastasia Cyborg is a nice silver, but they're not as bright and shiny as this. Ah, isn't that stunning? Like, even if you don't like Makeup Revolution, if you want to get just one Makeup Revolution palette, make it the Soap Extra Spice for the silver, because that's gorgeous. Gorgeous. And I wanted to feature a shade from the Natasha Denona palette as well. And then you might think the gold palette has these like really interesting like duochrome shades. That's not the one I want to feature. I want to feature this. This is called Kava. And Kava is a shade that I feel that depending on what you put it with, it sort of changes color. And I feel that this will go really nicely with some of the greens. It also goes really well with these mattes and that peachy shade. It's a bit more of like a brassy, goldy kind of shade. And it's a little bit on the sheer side, but all over the lid, paired with that green. I remember putting this with the greens that are in here, and it looked more green. Like, that's just what that shade does. This shade is one of those shades where, depending on how you pair it with the other shades in the palette, it will just look differently every single time. But if you know me, we do need a couple of pops of color. I think we've covered all of the neutral bases that you can use to make an everyday look, save for that green. But I, of course, wanted to make sure I could do something a little bit more purpley. And one of my favorite purples is in this palette, you guys. This is the Magic palette by Juvia's Place. And if you have the Magic Mini, or you have this one, Faso. And Faso is one of those bluish purple duochrome kind of goodness. This is stunning. And that's what I would put in for like a fun pop of color. Again, you can wear this all over the lid, on the lower lash line. I mean, together with that mauve shade and then this, and then that in the inner corner, like that will be a stunning look. As for some other colorful shimmers that I know I want to put in here, well, this is not really colorful, but I also wanted to make sure there was like a deeper shimmer in the palette. And I'm currently obsessed with one of the shimmers that's in the Naked Reloaded by Urban Decay. I'm not sure what happened to this palette. A lot of people also put this in their least favorite palettes of 2019. I really like mine. Like, I think that in terms of warm tones, this works better for me than the original Naked. But Dreamweaver, oh, it is a bit flaky, but it is a little bit more cool toned. And it has a, like, again, that like almost like taupey quality to it. But it is deeper, so again, on the lower lash line, or, you know, putting it with some of these other shades, I can really see this work. I've got shimmer now everywhere. So again, because it's not too shiny, I think that can work in the, like, in the outer V, or, like, I like doing that sometimes, putting a deep shimmer in the outer V. It looks really flattering on my eye shape. And that is just something that, again, it works really well with some of those neutrals. It can work with the purple because it has that coolness to it, but it's not super cool. But I want to make sure that I can complement some of these purples and greens in here as well. And I really like the tealy shimmer you get in the Juvia's Place Tri palette. I also really like those duochromes in the Natasha Denona palette. But I was like, I already have this duochrome and I've got that duochrome. I would just really want a good teal shimmer. And I think one of the best like tealy kind of shimmers that, again, not a lot of people are raving about, is actually in the Nabla Secret palette. This shade, Rosemary. It's, again, like a greeny, dark green, tealy kind of shade that, again, depending on how you put it all together, can work a little bit differently. And I just thought, oh, look at that. Oh, it's got a really nice intense black base, something a bit to deepen things up, and it will go stunningly with that green matte that I put in there as well. It will go stunning with the silver all over the lid too. So I just think that having that shade in there can really add some versatility. I've got 2 more shades left. And since we've got the greens and teals and we got some purples and plums in here, I think we have to put in some blues. And because most of it is quite cool toned, I wanted to go in with a shade from the Storm palette by Sleek. I'm not even sure you can still get this. I think they didn't discontinue the Storm. I think this is still around. Mine is super beat up and super old school because this waffle pattern you no longer get in Sleek palettes. You haven't for a long time. But this steely blue shade, it is absolutely fantastic. And again, with the silver, with some of the cool tones that are in here, I think that that can work really, really well. It's a bit like a bluish gray almost, but not super gray, as you will see in a minute, because this will look a lot more blue compared to the next shade, which, because that Urban Decay shade is a bit more brown toned, and I wanted to make sure to also put in a more like gray toned bluish shade for that ultimate smoky eye. And in the Stila, Eyes Are the Window to Spirit, you get this. And this shade is till this day one of my favorite shades for a smoky eye. So again, to create some depth and dimension. So I hope you can see that that's a lot deeper than the Sleek shade. It's more gray toned. It's not as blue. Like this, the Sleek shade has like it's like a dark gray with like a blue flash. So it's like blue, but not super blue. And again, I think that if you put it with the green, that Sleek shade can look really nice. This deep Stila shade can, as I say, really work well for a smoky eye. It will go really well with the silver. It will go really well also with these like neutrally brown shades. So for me, I think that this would make up my all-star palette. Muted jewel tone colors with some cool tone neutrals or neutral neutrals and a few staple mattes. That's what I would do. That would be my perfect lineup. So let me know in a comment down below what your all-star roundup would be. Like, what palettes would you pick? What shades would you pick from it? I think I have a pretty good selection here. I'm not sure what you think about that. Did you expect it to be this cool toned? And this neutral, like, I'm currently really into neutrals, but I just feel that if it has to play together as a team, it has to play together as a team. And then I don't really, like, you do get a little bit of a bright pop with that purpley shade from the Juvia's Place palette, and of course that green. So I think it's possible, but I'm just more into jewel tones and those kind of things than really like really bright colors. Like, I like color, I like a bit of bright, but if I had to pick shades for creating my ideal palette, it would probably look something like this, I have to say. Yeah, I think so too. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, click that thumbs up button if you can. Would very much help me out. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make new videos 3 times a week. So I'm gonna go and wash all of this off, and then I hope to see you in my next video. I hope you have a great day. Bye!